Hello, I'm the Irish guy, and can you do better? I'm going to grade every Premier League club's most recent managerial appointment from worst to best based on the pull of the club. Could they have enticed anyone who'd have ultimately done a better job than the current guy they have? Let's just see. And no, I didn't just make up this video this morning as an excuse just to put Graham Potter last. No, not at all. What? Right, let's go. 20th, West Ham, Graham Potter. Graham Potter. Graham Potter. Are you for real? Even his name, Graham, just makes him sound like an elderly pig. Graham Potter. Are you trying to make me fetch up my cornflakes? West Ham are a big club who can attract big name managers. And yet they're reaching out for this wet-faced weasel? Someone who is minutes away from joining Leicester City in the summer. And I promise you, he'd have been fired before Christmas. Lads, this man has been out of work for 21 months? I'm sorry, but if you spend that long out of a job, growing stale on the couch, you should be seen as an expired yogurt. You should not be walking back into a multi-million pound Premier League job. I mean, Frank Lampard was out of work for a similar length of time, and he had to downgrade to Coventry. Potter has been holding out for the England job for months, taking advantage of the fact that most English coaches outside of Eddie Howe are about as talented as a bowl of Cheerios, before ironically having his dream job nicked by the guy whose Chelsea job he stole. Look, Potter is just a slightly more elevated Gary O'Neill, somebody who was obsessed with the 1-1 draw at Brighton and was absolutely ripped to shreds at Chelsea, and now you're expecting him to succeed where a former Real Madrid manager failed? Lads, West Ham could have aimed higher. You're telling me they were interviewing a man who last week was the manager of AC Milan, and they're instead plumping for a guy who spent the last 2 years waking up at noon, someone who has been so bored he could probably now tell you every character's name on Hollyoaks and how many of them are pregnant in real life. Awful appointment. 19th, Southampton, Ivan Juric. Is this a joke? Look, the reason I don't have Southampton plumping for someone who looks like the sort of weirdo who sniffs his sister's seat after the family brunch, the reason I don't have this decision rock bottom last, with Southampton choosing to appoint a man who, honestly, looks like the sort of turtleneck loner who's married to a banana with a smiley face scribbled on it. Look, I realize that Southampton would not have had a queue of people wanting to ruin their Christmas by essentially accepting a doomed relegation scribbled on their CV. I mean, trying to rescue this Saints team from the drop is a bit like me telling you that I'm now off to Alaska to have a picnic with Big Foot. So no, I don't think the Saints would have attracted even a David Moyes. I think he would have treated that question as an insult. I'd be like if I were to ask KSI to come and eat a poo sandwich on my couch. But still, could you not have found someone who hasn't been sacked by the same club 3 times? Which should be proof that this man is managerial poison. He's the type of awful coach who comes in and makes Southampton worse. Like when Paul Jewell took the reins at Derby County in November 2007 and proceeded to make them the worst Premier League club of all time. I mean, it's kind of mental. His predecessor, Billy Davies, only had them bottom for 8 of his 14 matches in charge. It's the same when Remy Gard came in and made Aston Villa worse than they were under Tim Sherwood. These are the type of managers who take a bad team and make them a historically terrible team. So similarly, Juric, someone who looks like that middle-aged creep sitting in the corner of the nightclub, licking every page of a Hello magazine and winking at the staff, he is an impossibly bad choice. I genuinely believe Frank Lampard would have been a better pick. At least that man has some sort of aura in the sport, but Juric, he strikes me as that sort of desperate turtleneck guy who, when he's on a Tinder date, asks the woman if she's ever kissed a dog. 18th, Leicester, Ruben Amorim. Yeah, I actually was quite intrigued by this appointment at the time. But I think I was just hoodwinked by the media after all the fuss laid on Ruben Amorim after his decent interim gig at Old Trafford, where, to be honest, he just boosted his stock by repeatedly beating Leicester. But now that we're over a month in and the Foxes have lost 5 in a row, I think we're beginning to see that he was only appointed because he's a big, juicy name. I mean, it's been like when Blackburn Rovers appointed Paul Ince, for no other reason than the fact he was Paul Ince, a colossal Manchester United legend. It's mad. 2 weeks into his awful Blackburn reign, and Newcastle United were trying to appoint him too, despite the fact he's got the same level of tactics as a Ratatouille DVD. Van Nistelrooy is the modern day Ince, I'm afraid, because if he was off the back of an anonymous career, plying his trade in the Polish 5th tier for 17 years, the guy would now be working in a shoe shop, because he does not have the managerial brains equipped for a top Premier League job. He's like John Dahl Thomason, Blackburn and Sweden. Not Premier League. So yeah, they're going back down under Rude. If the owners had been sensible and fired Steve Cooper for David Moyes, and I do believe they would have gotten him. I mean, the last time the man turned down the Leicester job, they went and won the Premier League without him. That must have made him feel like eating his own nose. Because what better way to get revenge on Manchester United than by winning the league with Danny Simpson at right back? So yeah, he was the man who would have kept the squad up. 17th, Wolves, Vitor Pereira. Look, Vitor Pereira is fine for 6 months. He has come in and will keep Wolves up, as he is an infinitely better manager than Gary O'Neill. But that's not hard. That guy looks like a character pulled straight off the set of Romeo and Juliet. But right now, I just don't trust him. Getting into bed with Pereira is a bit like seeing your sister hook up with the guy who's had 14 girlfriends in the last 3 years. Since 2011 alone, Pereira has had 11 jobs, and weird jobs too. Chasing a quick buck in random parts of the globe. Honestly, he's probably secretly squeezed in a summer job mowing James Corden's lawn, or posing as Mickey Mouse at Disneyland. Long term, I don't think he's a smart choice at all. And I think they should have gone ambitious. Like when they hired Lopetegui. I think Maurizio Sarri could have been an exciting long-term coup. 16th, Brighton, Fabian Hürzeler. I'm not much of a fan of Fabian Hürzeler, and I think Brighton plumped for this wonderkid coach because they wanted to be as hipster as possible. I mean, come on, 31 years of age, born in the USA, but played for FC Pippadreed and Eamsbuller TV, clubs that sound like unpopular Digimon. And yeah, they snagged him from St. Pauli. And, well, you haven't won any of your last 8 matches. He's obsessed with stalemates. It's pretty boring, and there's a giant whiff of him being an even more hipster Graham Potter. He's a Potter clone, that's all he is. Look, Brighton once tried to get Ange Postecoglou, someone who is the perfect example of what Brighton want, a ball-playing manager with purpose. But unlike the wimpy goody two-shoes Potter, someone who probably apologizes for a sneeze, who says good morning to the spiders in his house, Ange has an edge, and oh yeah, he's had stints coaching in Japan, which makes him hipster enough for the Seagulls. Now obviously, they wouldn't have got him last summer, but a similar type of boss, like a Casper Heumeland or a Brendan Rodgers, they would have been perfect. Not someone who is so young that his childhood hero was Joe Weller. 15th, Crystal Palace, Oliver Glasner. It's funny, when Oliver Glasner came in and produced that sizzling end of season form of Crystal Palace, the fans probably thought they had uncovered an absolute gem of a coach after finally sacking Roy Hodgson again. But I think Palace's mediocre form in his first full season in charge now has shown that, yeah, suddenly, without their world-class golden nugget Michael Elise in their team, then they really are about as special as a birthday cake made out of shreddies. Every mouthful will be about as boring as the neighbour's team tune. Do I think Palace could have gotten better than Glasner? Well, yes. The 4-man shortlist consisted of Kieran McKenna. Okay, he was never an option, but also Steve Cooper and Julian Lopetegui. Look, Lopetegui wound up being a soggy bacon sandwich at West Ham, so I'm not going to say that he would have been quality at Sellers Park, but I actually think that Cooper was tailor-made for the job. Come on, I know he looks like if you doodled on a pancake, but his biggest strength has always been working with exciting, young British talent. I mean, come on, the bloke's a world champ who's worked with some future elite players at international level. I mean, there wasn't enough quality in Leicester squad to be successful, but he at least kept them competitive. I don't know, I think even now, Henderson, Chalobah, Gehi, Eze, Wharton, and Kedia, there is enough pure English talent there for him to have done a very good job. Better than Glasner, I would say. Yeah. You chose the wrong man. You might say you scored an OG. Forget it. 14th, Everton, Sean Dyche. Look, Sean Dyche has done what he was brought in to do. Well, sort of. Now he hasn't made Everton a stable mid-table side, which is why he's currently clinging to his job by the width of a horse hair. But still, he's kept them up. Just. So he's been a decent deployment, I suppose. I mean, when Lampard was sacked, the Toffees did show more of an ambitious interest in the likes of Marcelo Bielsa and Carlos Corberán. Infinitely better football brains than this tired old dinosaur, but I don't know. Dyche is what was needed at the time to grind out a few results and just get them through to their new stadium. And let's not forget, he did give Everton fans the first win over Liverpool at Goodison Park since 2010. So he's done okay. 13th, Tottenham, Ange Postecoglou. Look, I like Ange Postecoglou, and to me, he is quintessential Spurs. The modern day Martin Jol. A very Tottenham manager, but I know Daniel Levy doesn't want just an entertaining boss. He wants someone who can produce a competitive team, actually competing for things. And, well, Tottenham do have a bigger lure than just going out there and hiring the Aussie Brendan Rodgers. I think they could have hired better. When they binned off Antonio Conte, and after it all went sour. Because you know who's out of work and looking for a Premier League job? Mauricio Pochettino. And you're probably laughing at me saying, oh, he doesn't win stuff.
What do you mean he makes Spurs competitive?
I'm sorry, Spurs are 12th in January. This man got them to finish in the top 3 years on the bounce. I mean, their 86 points in 2017 is more than what Jurgen Klopp achieved in 6 of his 9 seasons at Liverpool. If you had put your ego aside and just begged him back, I'm sure he'd have chosen Spurs over Chelsea, and yeah, you'd probably now be top 6. 12th, Man United, Ruben Amorim. I don't know. I legitimately don't have a clue, so I'm just gonna throw Ruben Amorim in 12th. I don't know. I don't know if this is a genius masterstroke move, or if he is eventually gonna be shown up to be another AVP. I don't know. I was tricked by VS Boas too. When he came to Chelsea, I thought he was the sequel to the Special One. Of course, he just helped Porto win the league unbeaten. So let me get this straight. Winning the league unbeaten and winning a European trophy in Dublin, Xabi Alonso was one Ademola Lookman of doing exactly that last season, and he's the most sought after manager in the world. AVB was what Alonso is now back in 2011. So yeah, he did look like a fresh, exciting upgrade on Carlo Ancelotti, which is nuts because fast forward nearly 15 years, Ancelotti is the reigning European champion, just voted best manager in the world, while AVB is, the Porto president, where he probably instructs his wife to hide in a birthday cake. So Amorim, I don't know. I genuinely don't have a clue if this is a good appointment or not. He could be anything. 11th, Chelsea, Enzo Maresca. Enzo Maresca is doing a good job at Chelsea, but Pochettino would have done this as well. Chelsea finished 6th last season. They're currently 2 points ahead of 6th now. That's it. So yeah, I will shrug my shoulders at this Enzo appointment because it was unnecessary. I've no doubt Pochettino would have done the exact same. He was producing these sort of results in the spring. He was the one who finally got this ridiculously bloated Chelsea squad to finally gel and click. He was the one who finally settled on the perfect balance of a starting 11. So if you had to sack Pochettino, if he had done something in the background that was really strange, like came into work and creeped out the staff by asking them which Peppa Pig character they secretly fancied, then okay, fine. If he had to be banished to the States, then are you telling me you could not have found better than the Leicester coach? You know who I think would have been a perfect Chelsea manager? Vincent Kompany. If you had swooped in early and got him, because don't forget, Bayern were rejected by about 6 managers first. If you had gone to Burnley at the end of May, then yeah, I think he would have been that breath of fresh air, giving you swashbuckling Pep football that you have craved for years. I think he is a far better manager than Enzo. 10 to Liverpool, Arne Slot. You probably think I'm crazy to stick Arne Slot all the way down in 10th when he's having a glorious debut season at Liverpool. But lads, don't take this as an insult. Take it as a compliment. Do I think Slot is the only manager in the world who would have been getting these sort of results from your team? No, because your team was world class anyway. It was just slightly burning out under Klopp, as proven by the fact that Salah literally had a bust up with him in April. Slot is a very good coach. Better than I thought, but do I think he's the quintessential perfect Liverpool boss? And that nobody could have come in and done a similar or better job? No, I think Xabi Alonso was the perfect dream choice. A supremely clever tactician working miracles at Bayer Leverkusen, and stamp the fact that he's already a Liverpool midfield legend. I think Alonso would be a long-term brilliant manager at Anfield. I mean, come on, he's surely going to be a success at Real Madrid. He managed to go 51 games unbeaten with Bayer Leverkusen. That's longer than Arsenal's invincible run under Wenger. So what do you think he'd have done with this Liverpool side? Sorry lads, I think Slot is class, but Alonso, he'd have won you the treble. 9th, Newcastle, Eddie Howe. Look, Eddie Howe has been pretty unbelievable in his 150 games as Newcastle boss. Right now, as it stands, he's on course for a second Champions League qualification, and oh yeah, a second cup final, and meeting with Spurs at Wembley. Oh lads, I'm already licking my lips at the prospect, as if that fixture was an actual cheeseburger. So yes, Howe was a brilliant pick, but do I think he's the only one on earth who'd have gotten these sort of results and performances out of what is a very talented squad? I mean, come on, Isak, Bruno, Tonali, Botman, these are elite players, and the likes of Livramento, Hall, Gordon, and Joelinton are also very, very good. The Magpies' first choice was Unai Emery. Do I think he'd have done a better job than Howe? No, actually, I don't. Because I don't think he'd have had the same connection with the players. And I think Howe's fast-paced pressing football is very Kevin Keegan. And he's perfect for the Geordies. I don't think he's the only one in the world who'd have been this much of an improvement on Steve Bruce, but I still think he's very close to being the perfect Newcastle boss. 8th, Fulham, Marco Silva. Lads, words can't describe what a perfect job Marco Silva has done at Craven Cottage. Bear in mind, Fulham were a Premier League joke for the bulk of a decade. So when this embarrassed Everton flop dipped his toes into the championship to replace Scott Parker in 2021, nobody could have seen a 100 points plus promotion and then comfortable mid-table fun back in the Prem. Of course he was the perfect pick. 7th, Aston Villa, Unai Emery. Yeah, Aston Villa weren't really going to get any better than Unai Emery when they gave Steven Gerrard the chop. Don't get me wrong though, whilst last season was fabulous work, I don't think what he's achieving this season is anything special. And he did sort of bottle the Conference League too, a competition that David Moyes was able to win. Look, Champions League qualification, incredible. But do I think any other potential Villa boss could have done it? Well, maybe. Because Villa were aiming high. They were also targeting Pochettino and Thomas Tuchel. I don't know. Poch took Spurs to a Champions League final. Tuchel won the thing with a bang average Chelsea side. Either one might actually been able to squeak Villa into the top 4 too. So, I don't know. I'll put him 7th. 6th, Brentford, Thomas Frank. Yeah, look, you're going to start seeing the smaller clubs popping up in the top 10 now because this is all factored by, could the club have gotten a better coach at the time? And lads, when Brentford stuck in the championship back in 2018, what possible manager could they have enticed that would have done a better job than Thomas Frank? Because when Dean Smith left for Aston Villa, one of the prime candidates for the Bees job was Roberto Di Matteo. He'd have probably burned down the club. The other candidates were Mark Cooper, Nathan Jones, Lee Boyer, Michael Appleton, Danny Cowley, Yap Stam, and Alan Pardew. Yeah, which one of those Looney Tunes would have gotten Brentford promoted and then kept them there for at least 5 seasons? Exactly. 5th, Arsenal, Mikel Arteta. Look, I'm not saying that Mikel Arteta is some world-class manager or anything, but Arsenal were a complete mess when Emery was sacked in 2019. They were what Manchester United are now. It was a completely top-heavy, stupid squad full of overbloated players on mega wages who needed to be sold. The atmosphere at the ground was toxic, the squad was awful. This needed a long-term fix, with one man overseeing the lot. Like An old school Sir Alex Ferguson job from the early 90s. I don't think any other potential Gunners boss would have sorted this out. I mean, does anyone really think that Max Allegri would have had the patience to gradually flush out the toxic egos and stick around for 6 years? No, Arteta was the perfect long-term manager to roll up his sleeves, someone to give time and patience to, someone with a long-term vision, not just another elite coach who gets quickly fed up. I mean, when a serial winner like Emery couldn't hack it, that's when you know. Fourth, Nottingham Forest, Nuno Santo. Perfect. The perfect manager. I'm sorry, when Forest sacked Cooper last Christmas, the only other candidate for the job was Frankfurt's Oliver Glasner. Yeah, if Forest had that Austrian potato at the wheel, they'd now be 14th. Third, Ipswich, Kieran McKenna. Yeah, same. Nobody in the world could have taken Ipswich from League One into the Premier League. Oh, unbelievable. Second, Bournemouth, Andoni Iraola. People might not realise it yet, but Bournemouth have a world-class coach on their hands, and honestly, it's going to take him having to get the Cherries into Europe before everyone realises that replacing Gary O'Neill with him was a miracle appointment. This is like when Southampton sneakily hired Pochettino before everyone realised how good he was. I mean, this is all about who could the club have gotten instead, right? Yeah, in the weeks before Southampton landed on Pochettino, you know who was heavily in the frame to replace Nigel Adkins as their next manager? Alan Shearer. That was the other candidate. A pundit versus a future PSG boss. Drinking coffee with Micah Richards. Coaching Messi and Mbappe. That was what was in their respective career crystal balls. And similarly, I dread to think who else the Cherries would have gotten if not Iraola. Because you know who else was apparently in the frame? Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, and Graham Potter. First, Man City, Pep Guardiola. Obviously. Anyway, that's the event. Let me know in the comments section. What do you think? Let me know. How would you grade yours? Let me know in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you in a while.